Okay, now the reason I'm showing you this technique rather than go here, double click the layer itself and doing it this way, is this will get you to start thinking how Photoshop thinks and what's expected of you to manipulate and adjust layers. So here's my objective, okay? I want to create a drop shadow for the Joker layer. Well, that will tell me that I don't want to put the drop shadow inside of this layer. I want to make a separate layer. Why? Because I want to have the flexibility of changing things. If you put it in the same layer, that it's going to be tied to the same pixels. I don't want to do that. I want to create flexibility in my workflow. So I'm going to come down here and I'm simply going to do create new layer. Now this layer has to be below the Joker layer. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down to here. And if this is Joker, we're going to call this Joker shadow. Makes sense to me. Okay, make a change, save a change. Now, pay close attention to this. Where do you want the shadow to be? Well, I want the shadow to be in this layer. So I can either select the layer or from the Move tool, I can simply Command click. Now, in this particular case, that's going to be a little vexing. That's going to be a little difficult because there's nothing inside this layer to select. So in this particular case, the only option we're going to have until we put something here is to physically select the layer. I just want to share that concept with you. Okay, now pay close attention here. This is where we want the shadow to be. Okay, now look at your hand for a second. If you want to create a shadow of your hand, and your hand already exists on the page here, I don't have to reinvent the wheel here and create the hand. So I already have an outline silhouette of this image here. So what I can do is I can target the layer that I want to put the shadow in, which is right here. I can hold down the Command key and I can click. Similar to what we did before, Command click. Now make sure that you select the object as the image itself, not over here. So again, deselect, select the layer we want the shadow to be, Command physically click the image itself. Now, very important step here. I'm in the Move tool. I don't want to be in the Move tool. I want to be in a selection tool, any selection tool. As an example, the Lasso tool, L for lasso. Now, a couple of choices I have. I could hit my arrow key to the right. So let's say from the top left-hand corner, this is where light source is coming from. So if my light source is coming from here, that means my shadow would be down here. So we could do this one of two ways. Okay, we can hit the arrow key to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Arrow key down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, very important step here. I don't want to have this hard edge drop shadow. I want to have a nice, soft, feathery drop shadow. So how can we solve this problem? Well, in our previous video, I did say anything about the image itself is under the image menu. But in this particular case, we're not talking about the image, we're talking about a selection. Again, getting to think the way the software thinks. Anything about a selection is under the selection menu. Now, based on these choices, it'd be very nice if it said drop shadow here, but it doesn't. It doesn't say that. So based on these choices, this is how software thinks, guys. All software works the same way. Dialog boxes, menu choices. Based on these choices, this is the habit that you want to get into. Based on these choices, what do we want to do? Well, we're looking for something called drop shadow. Well, based on these choices, what am I actually doing to the selection? I'm actually modifying the selection, changing the selection. So that's modify feather. Okay? I'm sorry, did I say drop shadow a second ago? I think I did. My mistake. We're looking for feather. So again, it'd be nice if feather was listed right here, but it's not. So it's select, change, it's modify. Select, modify feather. There's a shortcut for that. Shift F6. Brings up the dialog box. In fact, let's go back to that for a second. Any dialog box, any menu choice that has a ... after it, again, I'm getting you to think the way the software thinks. That's how you master the software, guys. Understanding how it thinks, what it expects from you. Okay, so anything with a ... after, you're going to get a dialog box. There's no dialog box for grow. There's no dialog box for similar. There's a dialog box for these because they have a ... after them. It means continued, more information. So we're going to fill this with a feather selection of, say, 12 pixels and hit OK. Now, important step here. I could fill this with black by hitting Option Delete. Well, that's that drop shadow is not looking all that great there. That's not what I want to do. I want to fill it in with a blending mode of black at 65% opacity. Well, wait a second. That sounds like very difficult stuff. What did I just say? Blending mode, 65% black? Whoa, that's above my pay grade. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, we talked about this before in a previous video. Again, I can fill it with the foreground color by hitting Option Delete. That's not what we want to do. I can fill it with the background color by hitting Command Delete. That's not what we want to do. What we're looking for is Shift Delete. Shift Delete is a dialog box. Shift Delete equals Edit Fill. This dialog box, based on these choices, what do you want to fill this with? Well, we want to fill this with black multiplied. Now what that's going to do, multiply is going to multiply the background of the image. Now in this particular case, the background is white. But if you had bricks or a tile or a tree, it would take some of the property value of that background and multiply it, blend it into the foreground. So we're going to say multiply, and let's make this 65%. Now you can experiment with these settings, but this is like a tried and true way of doing a continuous tone drop shadow. So continuous tone drop shadow, black, multiplied 65%. So if I hit OK, there's my drop shadow. Now if that's looking a little too, it's kind of not looking all that great, we could go back to the Select menu, go back to Modify, go back to Feather, and let's feather this more. Let's feather this at about 18 pixels. And let's hit Shift Delete again, go back here, and let's make this 45% opacity. So it's a nice, soft, subtle drop shadow, because remember it's on top of white. I hit OK. So if I Command D, I've deselected, and there's my drop shadow. Now here's the cool part about this. If you do your drop shadow this way, which I will show you in another video, I don't think you have as much control over it this way as you do by creating your own physical layer. So watch this. If I now go to my Move tool, I don't want to move the selection. I want to move the image. So V for move, I can now move the drop shadow. I'm sorry, I need to be inside the Joker layer, so I can the Joker shadow layer, Command click. So now I can just move that drop shadow. So once I'm inside that layer, I can move the layer. How cool is that? Now I can adjust the things like its opacity, transparency from here, etc., etc. Now, if you want to move both the shadow and the Joker at the same time, well, the Shift key enables you to select more than one. So Shift click, now I can move them both at the same time. And if I wanted to rotate or scale them at the same time, we'll do that in our next video. Something called transformation. We'll transform the image in our next video.